Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi, everyone. Today I am speaking with Tara McKenna. Tara is a sustainability entrepreneur. She's a speaker, an author, and she is the founder of the Zero Waste Collective. You've probably seen her in the Globe and Mail, USA Today, CBC News. She's all over the place. Tara, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Tamara. How are you?
I'm good, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually been a really busy time. My book came out, and I also just had a baby recently, a few months
Oh,
ago. So, book and a baby.
wow. Okay. So, this will be interesting because I want to hear about zero waste and kids because I have three kids.
All right.
I need
Okay.
some tips, definitely.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
So, why don't we start by explaining what does that mean, the Zero Waste Collective?
Okay, so the Zero Waste Collective is my blog. It's kind of like my little baby that I created back when I had a 9 to 5 job where I wanted to kind of create a bit of an online community around zero waste living because I was super keen on it a few years ago when it just kind of started getting traction. So essentially, zero waste living is about reducing your personal waste. So, instead of grabbing a coffee on the go in a disposable cup, it's more about bringing your reusable. So I really went down that path of getting so excited about it, so I created this website as a way to kind of also help elevate other voices in the space, because my personal voice is just one voice amidst many other experiences. So I had some blog posts that were interviews, or I have guest bloggers blogging on the site. So I just wanted to kind of highlight different experiences, because at the end of the day, everyone approaches it differently. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So, would you say that before you sort of discovered this, um, that you had a lot of waste? Like, were you a person that had like a lot of things, or were you a cluttery type person, or
It's so hard to say, but let me rewind a little bit further back. So my dad's a pilot, and I grew up traveling. He worked in the Middle East for most of my existence, actually. So we lived in the Middle East for quite a while, but I'm otherwise from Guelph, Ontario in Canada. But yeah, so he got married in Bali in Indonesia back in 2013. And I talk about this in my book, Don't Be Trashy. But when we went to Bali as a family, we did some snorkeling and stuff like that. And when I was headed to Bali, I imagined it would be pristine and beautiful. And quite frankly, it is all of those things. The trees, the sand, the sea, all of those things were phenomenal. But what I didn't expect, because at the time, trash was obviously a known issue, but I don't think it was mainstream the way it is now. And certainly in the last few years, it's gained a lot of traction and interest. But at the time, it wasn't really top of mind, and it was really devastating to see so much trash along the beaches that literally just sweeps up with the waves, and even just snorkeling. So that kind of was where a lot of that kind of triggered for me, like, oh my gosh, this is devastating. I'm really sad that, we've done this to our planet. And I felt in that moment like, what can I do? This seems like such a huge problem. And I'm seeing it, and I'm floating around in the Indian Ocean. And I'm like, this seemed so big in my mind, and it didn't connect to my own waste. I was just like, where's this trash coming from? It
mm.
didn't, I didn't make that immediate connection to, getting takeout or disposable plastic water bottles. That immediate connection wasn't there. It's just like, why is this trash here? And my personal, contribution wasn't, crossing my mind. But then the more I kind of dug around, and I'm like, okay, well, litter's a problem, blah, blah, blah. But when I got home and I started to think about it, I was like, okay, how can I live more sustainably, and what can I do? And eventually I went down the rabbit hole and found, the zero waste lifestyle movement. And I'm like, ding, 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 this is
Mm-hmm.
perfect. It makes so much sense. Why are we, creating this disposable lifestyle? And it really, has only been in an existence since, I'd say, probably based on my research and reading, really the 1950s is when it really picked up, until now. And unfortunately, it's exacerbated over time. And certainly we're seeing a lot of the stuff that I promote is kind of challenging at this current time with the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of coffee shops are not letting you bring your reusables. And fair enough, there's a lot of caution around that, but there's still many ways that we can reduce our waste. But going back to that experience is where it happened for me. But I'm also very keen on the natural environment because my background is professional urban planning. So that was kind of my day job, and I was really focused on the natural environment. So how do we plan our cities and towns and development around natural areas like wetlands and wooded areas, and so bringing those two connections was really where this all kind of exploded into I'm creating a blog.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, it all starts somewhere, right? And it's like, what can
yeah.
I do just in my own little, world that I can have less waste? And I will say,
Yes.
you just mentioned that you just had a baby, and kids, it really, it's so hard once. It's hard, I think, because we're into convenience, right?
Yes.
Everything's
Yeah.
fast and we want it convenient and we just want to grab something and go. But then all of a sudden you have kids and a family and everything becomes, I don't know, it just feels so fast and furious, right? You've got diapers and wipes and bottles and, soothers and all these things. And
Yes.
then they go to school and you've got plastic containers and you've got, all the, it just, and yes, we reuse some things, but holy cow. And then can we even talk about the packaging that some things come in?
I
That's the
know,
one thing as
right?
a parent I've noticed is like your child gets a gift from somebody and it's, like there's these, a doll even, and it's in so much packaging and twisty ties and plastic
Yep.
things. And is that stuff all necessary in your view?
It actually reminds me of my childhood because I really liked collecting Barbies, and getting to the Barbie drove me bananas because you're like all those twists.
Yes.
It was like, she was locked in a prison. You're like, I can't get her out of this prison of packaging because it's so much and it hasn't changed since my childhood, like going to the toy store now. Is it necessary? Well, I guess it is when you're shipping a lot of this stuff from overseas, right? A lot of stuff isn't really made locally, and they're trying to make sure products, aren't destroyed in the
Yeah.
process of shipping, right? So I can see a certain need for packaging, but I also think a lot of things have become incredibly over packaged, and a lot of stuff are packaged just so they can have marketing, right? So you can stand out on a shelf from another product, and it's maybe not so much about protecting the product as it is about, being like, hey, buy this product instead of this product. And so, one way to combat that is to buy secondhand where possible, because then you're just not dealing with the packaging at all. So when we were preparing to have our baby, we were really lucky because we're able to get a lot of things secondhand. So whether we purchased it, like we bought a crib and a glider, and like I have like somewhat high-end expensive taste. I'll admit. So I was able to find the two expensive fancy items secondhand on Kijiji. So
Yeah, of course, right?
it was
Because
really great savings too,
yeah, because we have a crib and then you don't need the crib, so you can,
right?
pass that along. But I will say that I feel like we have, when I say we, I guess I mean me. It's sort of like, I have this idea and I know I'm not alone where when you have a baby, it's like, I want the new crib or I want the new this or it's better
Yes,
to, or it's more, and it's none of that's true. That's just an idea
yes,
that I've been, sold somewhere along the way that I have to have a new everything for a new baby. And
yes,
secondhand,
exactly.
gently used stuff, vintage stuff that's passed down, all really good for your baby too.
And quite frankly, babies don't care.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Oh my
Right?
gosh, it's so
It's not
true.
like she's like, "Oh, I'm 3 months old. This crib is not brand new." You know what I mean? It's like they don't care.
Yes.
They just want, love and
Ugh.
food and change their diaper and give them a nap. You know what I mean? Like they don't
Yes.
care,
Yes.
but we're
Yes.
living in this time of social media where everything needs to be photogenic, and it's hard because I get caught up in it too. I'm like, how pretty is that? But I'm like, wait a minute, does it matter? Because we have a safe, loving home, and it's just getting mixed up in the priorities, like what's important. And I think that's a huge part of the messaging that I wrote about in the book, and even I have to sell it to myself. Even I read my own book again and I'm like, yes, I need to remember these things, right? the important things matter and the superficial things don't, and the brand new shiny object syndrome, I need to like let that go. And that's a, part of being human, right? I think we all kind of want to get on that trend, but it's about making your own personal taste and style instead of getting caught up in all of the trends.
Okay,
So
that's refreshing to know that you have to give yourself a little bit of a reset too,
yeah,
because
100%.
I think that we all think that, people like you who this is your passion and you're an author and you're an expert on this, that this is all so easy for you. You just like it's no problem for you. And so hearing you say, "Oh, I need to remind myself that this is," it actually makes me feel better because I also think that that kind of you can work against yourself when you start failing in the zero waste department and you're like, oh my gosh, look at this. And it's like, oh, why am I even, bothering? It's like, no, let's just go back to why I'm doing this. Do you think that,
Exactly.
do you think that we can, I mean, okay, wait, let me back up. Minimalism and zero waste. The,
Yes.
the same
Okay,
thing?
my favorite topic.
The same thing or not?
No.
Okay.
No, because you can be a minimalist, but you could be super trashy, for example. Maybe you don't want dishes, so all you get is takeout. And that it might be an extreme example. I'm not sure that minimalists really do that per se, but I just feel like that's an example. But I'm really interested in minimalism because I'm interested in living with less. Like, how can I, have a smaller wardrobe that I really enjoy and want to wear most of that stuff? And because, the way I connect it is, the reduce, reuse, recycle, that kind of the three R's. I grew up with the three R's, and I really see the whole reduce as like basically the same thing as minimalism, right? So, living with less reduces your footprint because you're consuming less things, or maybe you're buying fewer, better quality items. So instead of, buying fast fashion, buying clothes every single week, you're going to perhaps build a capsule wardrobe of few solid basics that you switch up each season with different accessories, which I've been aiming for because you know I went towards minimalism before I went on the whole sustainability train myself, because my husband and I, when we got married, we moved into a century home and the closets were so tiny. And I was like, where do I put all my clothes? So I had no choice but to either live with a pile of clothes on my bed and on my, in my closet and in my drawers, or pare down. And I was like, not interested in leaving that pile on the bed. So I was like, okay, it's important to pare down. And clearly, if 100 years ago, people were able to live with these smaller closets, which are definitely, today people expect to have walk-in closets, right? An entire bedroom dedicated, size basically for clothes. But yeah, so essentially, minimalism is it helps reduce waste, but the two movements aren't the same thing. I like combining the two.
And do you think that we can, you know, be just as happy with less stuff as we are with more stuff? I mean, that connection, right? Like it's that hit of whatever you get from buying something that you really want, or the impulse buy of we're talking about clothes, maybe a top you've had your eye on, it's on sale and you don't really need it anymore, but you buy it and then you feel good about it, and then you don't really feel good about it because maybe you don't I'm is it so obvious I'm talking about myself? Maybe you don't wear it. And then you're looking at this thing that you bought that you've
Okay.
never worn because you didn't actually need it. And then it's this weird cycle in our brain, isn't it?
It is, and I talk about that a lot in the book. And actually, the subtitle is a practical guide to living with less waste and more joy. So the whole idea and concept there is, replacing that hedonic treadmill with something else. So if you get your hit of happy chemicals from going shopping and that's your hobby and you really love that, although you might feel a little bit of buyer's remorse when you check your credit card bill and you're like, oh, I didn't realize I spent that much until I checked my bills. And then you want to like hide under your bed. But basically, it's filling your time with other things that bring you joy. So what are those things? Are you into hiking? Do you like crafting? Do you want to spend more time with your kids and your family? So actually let me ask you that. What do you enjoy other than shopping that you could fill your time with instead?
Well, I mean, it's not that I enjoy shopping, but it's interesting because when you're taught, like, we're a family of five, and I think of the waste, and I would think that our biggest waste in this house is probably food.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that makes
And I
sense.
say that because I think that a lot of families, we want to make sure that we have bread in case we need this, and we have this and we have that. And then people don't eat it, or you have a week where maybe you order more takeout, or lunches come back. And I really do not like throwing out food. It is my biggest pet peeve. And
Yeah.
so I find that, I really have to think about like meals and meal planning and all that sort of stuff. But it's a lot of work, Tara. I mean, really,
It
and I don't mean that in
is.
a bad way. I just mean it in like,
No.
it's like we're all like trying to, in our little ways, right? We all have something that bugs us that we waste in our
Yes,
house, I think. For me, it's
for
food.
sure.
I do not like to waste food.
And that's a good thing that you're aware of that because you're aware of it and it's something that you're keen on. It's something that you can at least work on, whereas perhaps for other people it might not be food. But um, it's hard for me to say, what it's like to live in a household of five people because it's right now it's just my husband and I and our, 3-month-old baby. I can imagine a house with three kids is a completely different ball game when it comes to the kitchen. But I do have an entire chapter of my book dedicated to, assessing, food and packaging in the kitchen and kind of figuring out what that looks like. And the biggest tip that I could probably give in this scenario is simplify it as much as possible, right? Just, have your go-to specific meals because it's easy to get, a million different types of food. And that's where the stuff gets hidden at the back of the cupboard and you haven't,
Yeah.
looked back there in a long time and you're like, oh, that expired 5 years ago or whatever, right? So,
Yeah. No, it's true.
yeah.
It is true.
So, yeah,
So
it's
simplify
about
it.
doing it. Yeah,
Okay.
simplify it, and the whole chapter is basically about doing a pantry audit. So what that and this might sound a little overwhelming because when I did it, I literally audited every single item in my kitchen. That might not be feasible for everybody, but I did. I sat down and I wrote down every single thing that we, ate or forgot we had to eat and was like, okay, well, what can I do to pare down, simplify, and streamline my kitchen and also find less wasteful alternatives. So, you know, can we get milk in a jar that we can return and then get reused? And, can we get package free bread, which was easier pre-pandemic? And, certain things are a little bit more challenging, but a lot of things are starting to come back at zero waste grocery stores or bulk
Yeah.
stores that are letting you shop again with your own containers. But basically, a simple kitchen is probably an easier kitchen and just stick to, your favorite 7 to 10 meals. And but I mean, when kids come home with uneaten lunches, I mean, there's certain things that are inevitably out of your control. What can you you're like, no, don't come home with food waste.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know.
I mean, it's all about doing your best, right? And I
Yeah.
guess, being aware of, I'm very aware of certain things that are, that we waste in this house. Okay, so I have so many questions for you, but before we
Yeah.
get to those questions, we like to thank our guests for sharing their time with us, and we always ask our guests to choose a registered nonprofit organization to give $500 to. You chose the Nature Conservancy of Canada, which is the largest private nature conservation and restoration organization in the country. So we will be giving them $500. So thank you so much for choosing them.
Oh, that blows my mind. Like, thank you so much. I am so grateful for this amazing donation for them because one thing that we need more of is more nature. So,
Yeah, isn't
I'm
that the
really,
truth?
yeah, I'm really
I
glad
think
that
we've
they're
all
doing that
discovered
work.
that in the last couple of years, just, how lucky we are to live in a country that has so many great places that we can go for walks and enjoy the outside when, oh, in this pandemic. Okay, so let's talk about some new habits. I was
Yeah.
reading, so I was looking on your blog and I read your blog post. I think it was from May of last year, and it's 100 things to declutter from your home today. And
Yeah,
I have to say that it's really helpful, Tara. Like
that's
things that
good.
is so true, right? Like you go through the entertainment, the linens. When I think about my linens that I have been holding on to for so long, and bathroom, old makeup, like just stuff
Mm.
that, clothes that don't fit. We some of us have a tendency to hold on to things, right? Like, oh, I'm going to wear those jeans again one day. I am. Am I
Yeah.
really going to wear those jeans? Because whenever I don't know, Tara, when I read these things where it says if you haven't worn it in a year, it's time to let it go. And I think to myself, oh boy, like there's a lot of things I haven't worn in a year just because,
Yeah.
where we are right now. I wear a
Yes.
lot of sweatsuits right now.
Right? I know. I know. It's a very different context right
Yeah,
now.
it really is. So maybe you can give us some ideas of some new habits that maybe some of us can think of.
For sure. And I'll say the one thing that I really love decluttering is the same thing that we were talking about with the kitchen. When you see what you have, you're more likely to use it. And it's less likely to, be discovered 5 years later and you're like, oh, well, that's trash, right? So not everybody likes decluttering. I really do. I like streamlined, simplified. My husband's, I'm always like, can we get rid of this? And he's like, again. But it's hard. Everyone's different that way, but I think it makes it easier to enjoy our homes and enjoy our space. And I think people are becoming way more aware of it because we're spending a lot more time at home. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, you're looking around and you're like, I really want to actually really enjoy this space because I'm spending so much time here. So, in terms of just taking time to reflect on what works, it's one thing to be like, okay, I'm probably going to save my jeans because yes, we're hoping that this pandemic is not going to last for like the rest of our lifetime, right? So certainly don't get rid of things you actually think you plan to use because, right now we're kind of going from nighttime pajamas to daytime pajamas.
Yes.
but but yeah, so it's just about picking things that you love and that you want to use and then removing the rest. And I always worry about this because I feel like decluttering and minimalism are almost at odds because I'm like, "Oh, you guys should get rid of all of your stuff." But it's not about getting rid of stuff that you find useful. It's more like getting rid of stuff that other people can use and get joy from. So whether you sell it or put it on, Facebook Marketplace and make a little bit of money from it, there's opportunities to pass that stuff along to other people who will use it. You know what I
Right. Like
mean?
if you have a whole bunch of CDs in your house and you don't have a CD player,
Yeah. Okay.
because
So
some of
that,
us,
yeah.
that's not me, Tara, but it was at one time. And, it's my husband turned to me and he said, why are you keeping these CDs? You have your music on your computer, on your phone. Like we don't need to keep the CDs anymore, right? And it's so true. So we
Yeah.
donated them to a place that could use them.
Exactly. So finding people or places that can use items that you no longer want is a great way to rehome them. Not everybody has time to, analyze all of the different places for our things to go. But if you can take that time, it helps reduce the chances of those things ending up in landfills, right? So there will probably be some, enthusiasts out there who are still into CDs, and it's people like that you want to hopefully make sure that they find a home with those, people that are interested in those things. So, um, for example, with having a baby, what I've come to realize is you're going to get stuff that you don't want, and it's going to come to you even though, you've tried to share your preferences with the world, family, friends, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, most people are very respectful of, our preferences. And that's part of helping reduce the incoming of stuff into your home is to share those preferences with family and friends. And And so, but we have still gotten a few items that we weren't going to use. And I remember putting one item on Facebook Marketplace, and it was free. It was nothing very expensive, just a little stuffed toy. And a mom reached out to me and she's like, "My daughter wants that exact one."
Wow.
And
Yeah.
she came and picked it up the next day, and my heart melted because she's like, "My little 3-month-old could care less. But you're telling me your daughter is super pumped for this stuffed toy." So it got rehomed in a home where it's going to be loved, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very, very
Mm-hmm.
happy about that.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we think about, strategies to either to I guess to live more sustainably, right? They really are simple strategies that we can put in place today that will make a big difference for our earth in the long
Yes,
run, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about your new book, Don't Be
Yeah.
Trashy. So, who did you write this book for? Like, is it for
Well, I'd
the
like
people who are new, or is it for people like who have never considered this before?
so I'm just gonna quickly hold
Yes,
that up.
please do
So,
hold it.
woo. So my journey, I'd say, has been probably a decade long journey, right? So I went through the phase of minimalism. I went through the phase of detoxifying my home and getting rid of some of the harsh chemicals, and went through the phase of like zero waste, like reducing my waste. And I'll tell you, I went a little too zero waste, and I feel like I should share that story at some point where my husband started hiding like bags of chips on me. And I was like, whoops, okay, we went too far. That is not maintainable. And so we need to like dial it back and not be so hardcore. Cause so I went pretty hardcore, and now we're, maybe not as, low waste as we were, but we're in a more manageable space. But basically, I, consumed so many documentaries, so many books, did so much research over like this 10-year period almost. And I have basically packed that into this book. So this is broken down into 12 chapters. So, we're talking new year, new you. This is January. It's a really great start to, read this book and think about the year ahead and all the changes that you can make in your life in a way that's not overwhelming, because it's not something that happens overnight, right? Like I have chapters that talk about, your kitchen, and your kitchen is a whole project in and of itself, like making meals, right? It's like a heart of a home. And then there's your bathroom with your toiletries and all of those things. So it's for people who want to make changes in their life, but know that it's not going to be immediate. They're not going to become minimalists tomorrow or go completely zero waste. I just don't think that's a very realistic thing. So, I don't know if you've seen this yourself, but there's this like the trash jar has become popular on social media, where
Mm,
there's, people who are like, "Oh, like this is my entire year's worth of trash
yeah.
in a jar." And I just don't think that's realistic for most people, and I know it's not realistic for my household. So writing this book was basically a way to do a step-by-step process of creating new healthy habits that benefit, yourself and the planet, because you save money, you might eat healthier, you might live better, you might feel happier, and all of those things, but it's not overwhelming. It's meant to be inclusive. It's meant to be, a you do you kind of book. And don't worry if you're not perfect, because there's a lot of critics out there who judge people who become a little bit more like environmental, right? Like, if you have a gas guzzling car, but you don't have an electric car, but you want to reduce your waste, and then all of a sudden someone's there to point out your flaws. Well, this book is not about that. It's not here to judge your flaws, and it's not here to even talk about flaws. It's about like what works for you, what works for your family, what works for your household, and everyone else, like, it's not their business. So
Oh, I
that
love
is,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's approachable. That is something I think that we can all take something from. It's not. I like that. No, no judgment. Just we all do our best, right? We do what we can. It's been
Exactly.
so good talking to you. This is such a great way to really kick off the year with a book like yours, because it does.
Yeah.
It's kind of the time of year when we all start thinking about what can we do, what are some small steps we can take, and Don't Be Trashy is a pretty good way to start off the year. So I really appreciate your time, Tara.
Well, thank you, Tamara. I appreciate your time as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to remind everyone you can visit Tara's website at thezerowastcollective.com. You can also follow Tara on Instagram at zero.waste.collective or on Facebook at the Zero Waste Collective. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.